There is no one I am closer to than my parents. An 18-year-old close with their parents? That might sound strange, but it's true. I really admire my parents for everything they have done for me. Pay for my school tuition, get up early to drive me to school, and of course, put a roof over my head. They've taught me everything I know.
When she was little, I was her soccer coach, math tutor, and drove her to church every Sunday, even when she didn't want to go. We were very close, but around the age of 10, she started acting differently. She wanted to quit soccer, but I wouldn't let her because it was the only activity that would get her to go outside.
From the ages of 10 to 14, I constantly got in trouble for my stubbornness, back-talking, and negative attitude. I was mad at him for making me participate in something I didn't enjoy, which made me resent him. I would no longer ask for help in anything, and we butted heads all the time. The worst part was, whenever we had a fight, neither of us apologized. I may have been the most stubborn child, but my dad was the most stubborn parent. We had created a barrier between us without even realizing it.
When she was 14, she no longer talked back to me, but she no longer hung out with her friends. She went to soccer practice without any argument, came home, but did nothing but her homework and hang out in her room. At dinner, she was quiet and hardly ate anything. I would ask what was wrong, but she would just say, "Nothing." I was worried and didn't know what to do. We stopped going to church a little bit more, and then when I would ask her about her day after school, she would just say, "Fine."
I never talked to him about anything because I was an emotional person and I hated crying in front of him. I never wanted him to see me weak because he was so strong when he had to handle tough situations. I also didn't want him to tell me to get over it. I had never really asked him for advice before, and I refused to start now. I was so absorbed with how I was feeling, I didn't even consider that my attitude was affecting him as well.
Things got a little better when high school started. At least that's what I thought. She would ask me to take her to baseball games, and she started hanging out with her friends. Her grades were great, and she even got involved with cheerleading at basketball games. I was so happy to take her to every game and watch her cheer on the team. During her sophomore year, she didn't want to join the cheerleading team, but we still went to games together because she said she wanted to watch the game rather than cheer. When we were driving home from the last basketball game of the season, out of nowhere, she started crying.
All of the emotions I had bottled up had finally come out, and I didn't know how to stop it. Honestly, I didn't want to. I told him everything I had been experiencing for the past few years, and thankfully he didn't see my crying as being weak. He calmed me down, and we had a very long conversation, and it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and the barrier between us had been broken.
We started talking about everything from school to her friends to music, and we went to church every Sunday without any kind of conflict.
It takes two to break down the barriers. I often hear kids saying that they never talk to their parents. If this sounds like you, know this: it's never too late to start.
I know a lot of you probably think it's really lame to be close to your parents. Well, I was very close to my mother growing up and talked to her about everything. She always had the time and the patience to listen to what I had to say. She didn't always tell me what I wanted to hear. I'm 54 years old now, and I still call her 3 or 4 times a week just to talk. Every other week or so, I take the 6-hour trip up to Philadelphia to visit her. I try to be the same with Camille as my mom was with me. Have the time and the patience to listen to her. And even though I travel quite a bit, we still keep in touch by phone when I'm out of town.
The hardest part in breaking the barrier is taking that first step. Instead of waiting for your parents to take it, you should do it yourself. Even though my dad and I still butt heads from time to time, he is still my role model, father, and best friend. Being a role model, he guides me in the right direction. For example, always getting me to go to church on Sundays, even when I'm really tired. As a father, he provides for our family. As a best friend, he constantly gives me life advice and does not sugarcoat it. Most importantly, he gives me a shoulder to cry on, which I do quite often because I am no longer afraid to be emotional in front of him.
And I wanted to quote Psalm 103:13. As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him.